And welcome back to the Flow Sports Fix. I've got the two gentlemen back in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. I have got the Flow Man and the Stat Man. And this time we're talking about video footage. We see it constantly in the AFL when we sit down and watch our games of the AFL or the SANFL or the VFL. There are multiple cameras and camera angles. But at our local football, it tends only to be one camera if they've got it. And that sort of makes you start to think when you see some of those plays. I'm thinking more recently of Scott Lysette and his little sling tackle and all the angles they showed on that. But there are other angles that you're not going to see at local football because you've only got the one camera. But there could be other camera angles from other directions, from other people. And I'm just sort of hypothesising here that a can of worms could be open on all this, if you understand where I'm going, Jace.
I do understand where you're going, and it is something that's evolving because live streaming of local games of football is becoming more and more prevalent now. And I know that those who are live streaming are becoming better and better at it with more and more equipment. As this equipment gets cheaper, these live streamers are able to get more cameras. And I know, for example, Big Bruce, who does the Mallee football in our area, now has 2 cameras in operation. When he first started, he only had the one. Other live streamers will do it in a different situation. So, look, what we do know is that, and I, in anticipation of us talking about this, I've put in a call to Scotty Duncan. He won't mind me saying his name, from the southeast football area, the zone down there, and just asked if this footage, that some of it that's being taken, is being used at tribunal level now. And Scott won't mind me saying that his reply was, yes, it has been used in some instances, but by and large, they try and use it where something that has been missed completely by umpires has been captured on camera.
So behind the play stuff you're talking about. So if it's a
behind the play situation where an umpire has been focused on the ball, something's happened way off the ball and they've actually captured it on camera, then they'll use it in those sort of circumstances. But if it's a situation where the umpire's already seen the incident, written a report, they tend not to go to the footage, even if it does exist, because they want to try and maximise and not belittle, I guess, or belittle's probably the wrong word, but not minimise the evidence given by the umpire at the tribunal. And it's so hit and miss that some games have the cameras, other games don't, that it's not fair if you're using it in some and not in the others, I guess. That's the logic behind it. Obviously, in time, it'll improve and get better, and we'll have more use of the footage, and maybe country football tribunals will be able to use it more often. But for now, I think they've got it right. I think that's the right balance. If something is reported that an umpire hasn't seen and it's captured on camera, that a tribunal should probably be presented with that, because that's the only evidence that there is on offer. This is what was seen and caught on the camera. The umpire didn't see it, so then I've got no problem with it being presented in a tribunal circumstance. But I think with the amateur nature of live streaming at the moment, I think it'd be really dangerous to make a hard and fast rule saying if there's footage, we have to present it.
Some
of the bigger country leagues, in Victoria particularly, have live streaming of each of the games. In some cases, they have no commentary. They just have a video camera on the top of the clubhouse, usually at a high point up there. And South Australia and the Southeast, one of the football clubs down there, I know, does that with their own home games. I think that we're going to see a significant amount more about this. I think the insurance side of it will come into this too, with collision and concussion injury and so on. We've discussed before in this Sports Fix segment. So I can see that we're getting technology that's starting to move in, but the average iPhone that can now be bought over the counter has a resolution on it that, in general terms, if somebody wanted to set it up on a tripod and set it going with a power cord into it and maybe a USD card at halftime or quarter time or whatever, so that you can take the footage out and put it onto a card, there's no reason why technically now every league couldn't have each game streamed. I mean, in terms of just the video footage, not necessarily a quality commentator like this bloke sitting next to me, Jace Regan, who I think is one of country football's best commentators. That aside, we may not get all the benefits of commentary, but I think we're going to get a lot more video, which in effect is going to provide the evidence that tribunals will use. I take your point and Scott Duncan's point about the problems that they have as to when you might use this, but I can see it's going to, I guess, clean up the game a bit. The old, hitting him behind the play after it's gone, and the local goal umpire turning around saying, I didn't see it. I don't reckon that you can have that if there's a number of camera angles.
Is that why you only played 8 games?
Yes.
Well, actually, on that point, Flo, man, and I'm sorry to jump in on you here, but I think you're right to a point where it already has changed the game. I think country football now we're seeing a lot less incidents off the play, particularly when cameras are involved. When people know the cameras are there, you don't see too many cheap shots behind the play anymore. There's a bit of push and shove and that sort of stuff, which has always been part of the game and probably always will be, but certainly none of the nasty incidents that I've seen in the past. I can recall, many nasty incidents when I was younger. Players kicked on the ground and just things like that, just that should never happen in society at all. And I can't recall one at a game where there's been a camera. It's funny, you would see the footage otherwise,
in recent times.
And I can't recall a really bad one like that.
The other thing I want to say, just on these cameras, and fantastic what MFL TV are doing with Mallee football in South Australia, and Jason and I have become guest commentators with them. It's part of what Flo wants to do and increase our media coverage, and having an association with that is part of what we want to see more of. With that in mind, we are going to, in the future, see a lot more involvement of the best marks, the best goals, and you might remember when Channel 9's Footy show used to have the Almost Footy Legends
yes,
segment.
Yeah, remember that, yeah.
And now, to run such a thing is, there's literally thousands of camera shots that are on all country football games. So that great mark that you saw back in 1980, which you can only remember in your mind because you were there that day, and you remember that bloke climbing 6 foot off the ground, and he had his sprigs in the back of the head of the bloke in front of him and took the ball at the apex at the highest point. And that actual mark happened at the Own United Kangas game about 3 years ago, where the full forward came out and it was on film. They got the mark. It was, and it is one of the great country footy marks. He is 12, 13 foot where he takes the ball in the air. And that's what I think this is going to bring. The cameras at the game, while I think there's going to be some tribunal appearances, I reckon that the highlights reel, and we saw it on the weekend with the Border Downs Tintinara versus Murrayville game, where some of the goals that BDT kicked in that footage were unbelievable country goals. They were as good as anything you see in the AFL. I reckon this is where we're going to see a lot more joy for the patrons of our game and for folk further afield that will get to see some of these great moments.
2 quick questions. You'll probably give me long answers, but 2 quick questions. Should it be all grades? So even from juniors, we're talking about video footage. And getting onto the tribunal, what about someone from the crowd filming an incident from their angle? Would that be accepted to be in a tribunal situation?
All right, to answer your first question, and I'll be as quick as I can here, yes, I'd love to see it all grades. Not necessarily saying that commentary needs to be part of it, as Flowman said. I think you can set up a camera and plug it in and use a card and have someone responsible for that. Then, kids would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was thinking,
on the telly when the time comes. So, yes, I think that's good. As far as players filming, mobile phones being used to film incidents, look, legally, if you film someone assaulting someone else in public at a pub or down the street or something like that, that evidence is admissible in court, the way I understand it, in most circumstances. In some it may not be, but in most circumstances it is. So how could you then go against what is the law? I don't see how you could. So, if you catch someone on your camera and they've whacked someone behind play and the live stream missed it, the umpire missed it, and you've got it, and you want to present it as evidence, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
Which is, I think, where we're heading with the original topic. It's going to have some curly ones in the next, I reckon, 3 to 5 years, while we start getting country competitions more aware of every game that does have cameras, and as to whether or not there becomes a policy with filming. Again, when we're at a AFL match, sitting in the crowd, daughter and I sitting there watching the other day and saw an incident, which the umpires clearly didn't see. So we saw it. If we had the camera filming it and that got on social media, that could go wildfire, and suddenly it could appear on a mainstream, larger audience program, which then could end up at the tribunal, because I guess the political correct nature of the game would be to then present it in that situation. So I think that's where we're heading. I don't know it's good for country football, but but it is a topic that's worth discussing here on the Sports Fix.
It's a very good topic, and it just makes me think, with all the cameras around us, we better stop scratching ourselves and doing other things.
How many cameras are in this studio at the moment?
I'm
too scared to move.
I just keep seeing these red lights on me, and I'm just going, what are they? Is there a sniper or is it a camera?
Yeah, get your finger out of your nose, Chase.
There was a reason I got into radio, and it was to avoid these cameras.
Yeah, same here.
I've got a face for radio, you know that.
We all have. Well, folks, if you've got some thoughts you'd like to share with us, please do so. Don't forget to send Jason an email. He loves getting those emails, news@flowfm.com.au, or you can join in the conversation by going to our Facebook page. Flow FM Australia is their handle to look for. Thank you for coming in, guys.